Today, we're taking a look at a conversation you have almost every day, really, in your professional life, talking about what you do.
Hmm.
It sounds simple, right? But, when you're caught off guard, that simple question, what do you do? It can lead to rambling or jargon,
Oh, absolutely.
or worse, you just completely undersell yourself.
That's exactly right. And our source material today, it's less about just casual chat.
Hmm.
It's more about providing a really comprehensive sort of strategic blueprint for articulating your whole professional narrative.
Okay.
It moves really systematically,
Mhm.
from the immediate definition of your role to your daily rhythm, the context of your work environment, and even your future aspirations.
So our mission today is to go far beyond just the basics then. We're not just listing job facts.
Not at all.
We are extracting the essential structure and the specific high-value language you need to convey your entire career story clearly, confidently.
Yeah. Because talking about your job, it isn't just like a common conversation. It's often the gatekeeper, right,
Yeah.
to new opportunities. You really need to master it.
Totally agree.
Indeed. So the source material, it lays out this really logical kind of five-stage framework,
Yeah.
defining the role, painting the daily routine, establishing the environment, tracing your career trajectory,
Mhm.
and finally mastering the engagement or, how to talk to others about their work.
Right.
So we're essentially building a complete high-impact narrative arc for your professional life.
Let's jump right in. Let's look at those immediate foundational answers first.
Okay, so when that inevitable question comes up, what do you do? The first thing you need is just crystal clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, I think, they jump straight to the simplest answer, which is just stating the job title.
Yeah, that's the default. And honestly, it works perfectly well in a lot of social settings. You might say, I'm a teacher or I'm an accountant.
Yeah.
It's clean, it's direct, it establishes the core domain immediately. But the sources suggest there's like a strategic alternative. If you want to focus less on the corporate label, maybe, and more on the value you deliver, the function.
Exactly. This is where you use that function-focused phrase.
Tell me more about that.
Well, what's fascinating here is the subtle shift. It's a subtle but powerful difference this phrasing makes.
Okay.
So instead of defining yourself by the container of the role or title, you define yourself by the action. You might say, I work as a designer,
Mm.
or I work as a financial planner.
Ah, I see.
That communicates the type of work you perform. And it immediately shifts the listener's focus to your practical skill set.
Yeah.
In a networking scenario, for instance, choosing that function-focused phrase can, redefine your perceived value instantly.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah. A senior analyst sounds organizational, but working as an analyst specializing in market trends, that sounds like a skill set you actually possess.
Precisely. But once you state the function, you've got to immediately anchor it, right?
Right.
You need to give some context.
Right. Where does it happen?
Exactly. You don't just state the job. You define where it happens, which means identifying the company, maybe the organizational context, or your autonomy. You might say, I work for a global pharmaceutical company, or maybe I work for a local marketing agency. Gives it grounding.
And if you're, running your own show, your own
Sure.
business.
Then the context shifts entirely to autonomy. And the specific clear phrase there is, I'm self-employed.
Right.
And that phrase, I'm self-employed, that's a whole conversation starter in itself, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah. Stating that clarifies immediately that you are your own boss, which means you manage everything, right? From client acquisition to execution.
Mhm.
You're not just doing a job. You are running an entire structure. It sets expectations about your level of independence and often your workload, too.
Okay. So once the core identity, title, or function and the context, employer, or autonomy are sort of established,
Yeah.
the listener's waiting for the details, right? You have to pivot immediately to responsibilities. What does the job actually involve?
This is the key move. From the abstract label to concrete action. This is where you use those clear action phrases, defining daily tasks.
Verbs.
We were talking verbs here, yeah. Instead of just saying, I'm a social media manager, you detail the work.
Hmm.
I manage social media campaigns across 3 platforms.
Okay.
Or if you're customer-facing, it's something like, I help customers troubleshoot their daily technical issues. Specifics.
The source gave a really good example for an educator. I prepare lessons and teach English to students.
Mm-hmm.
And they specifically highlighted that these are the main tasks, not just, side activities.
Exactly. And this is where we need to introduce a bit of structure, especially if you have complex duties. To make these responsibility statements sound professional and clear,
How do we do that?
we draw on what the source calls the high-value phrases for clarity. There are a couple of key ones.
Okay, let's unpack the strategic difference between these. The first high-value phrase is about defining ownership, right? Accountability. Yeah, I'm responsible for.
Yes. This one is powerful because it signals measurable impact. It shows what you own.
Right.
So if you are an administrator, let's say, you might say, I'm responsible for planning the classes
Right.
and ensuring the training materials are up to date.
Okay.
See? It demonstrates direct ownership of a critical organizational outcome.
Hmm?
It's managerial language, really, regardless of your actual title.
Interesting. But the second phrase, it shifts the focus entirely, doesn't it? It moves away from accountability more towards, like, motivation or the primary objective. My main task is...
Exactly. This is the phrase to use when you want to highlight passion or the core mission behind what you do.
Ah, okay.
So, for instance, for that English instructor example, saying, my main task is to make learning English fun and engaging, well, that's much more compelling than simply saying, I teach.
Yeah, definitely.
It explains the purpose behind the activities. So if you're interviewing or maybe networking, strategically choosing, my main task is, allows you to define your core value proposition and, importantly, why you enjoy the work. When you use these structured phrases, you move beyond just listing activities. You start explaining the core value and the impact of your role. You're defining your job thoroughly.
Okay, so once we've defined the job, the core responsibilities, the conversation naturally flows into the temporal rhythm, right? The daily life of work.
Yeah, the routine.
People are usually pretty curious about how you structure your time, so painting that routine feels like essential context.
It absolutely provides that temporal context.
Yeah.
And we always start with the fundamental structure of the day.
Yeah.
Just stating the specific start and finish times.
Yeah.
You might say, I start work at 9 a.m. and finish at 5 p.m. Whatever it is, it immediately sets the expectation about your availability and maybe the rigidity of your schedule.
Right. And then we fill in those blocks, focusing on the morning, the main tasks. For a lot of listeners, in a typical corporate or professional setting, there's a very recognizable structure. The source material called it a classic start.
Ah, yes, the classic start. That's crucial because it's almost like a universal language for administrative or office work.
How so?
Well, every morning, typically, you check emails. And you might attend a short meeting, perhaps a 15-minute stand-up, something like that.
Okay.
That routine, it serves two purposes, really. Clearing the administrative deck, getting that out of the way, and aligning goals for the day ahead.
Makes sense. And once that classic start is over, the real work begins.
Pretty much, the source suggests the day often breaks down into focus blocks then. So you work on your main tasks until lunch, maybe, dedicating deep, hopefully uninterrupted time to high-priority items. And the afternoon tends to be slightly different, often. The sources describe it as frequently reverting back to communication, administrative checks, having a few more meetings and answer more emails.
Okay.
That pattern is pretty key for understanding a standard corporate schedule. Input alignment, then deep work, then realignment communication again.
But, I always challenge the idea that a job is just a sequence of tasks. If we only describe the tasks, we miss the human element, don't we?
We absolutely
We need to add dimension through social interaction.
That's an excellent point. And these details, they're what make the description complete and relatable. Do you discuss lunch with colleagues at 1 p.m.?
Right.
Or do you maybe take a short coffee break in the afternoon? These small details, they show whether the job is solitary and purely output-focused, or if it's maybe highly collaborative and requires that necessary social decompression time.
Yeah, those details are like the brushstrokes that truly paint a picture of the day.
Exactly.
And look, to avoid listing every single minute of the 8 hours, we probably need a synthesis phrase, right? To consolidate all these routine elements into one clear, memorable description.
Definitely. And this synthesis phrase is a really powerful tool for that. The expression recommended is, a typical day at work looks like.
Okay, a typical day at work looks like. Why is that structure so effective? Why not just say, I usually spend my day doing X, Y, and Z?
Good question. I think because saying a typical day at work looks like, it sort of appeals to the listener's cognitive structure. It signals a summary is coming, an immediate visualization.
Like a headline.
Exactly. It acts as a perfect summary headline, structuring what follows. So, for example, if you are a teacher, that typical day looks like maybe teaching 5 classes and grading homework. It sets a clear expectation of structure and tempo right away.
And the source material highlighted how starkly this template can contrast between different professions. Compare that corporate cycle of emails and meetings to the teaching routine we just mentioned.
Yeah, they're very different rhythms. The teaching routine is far more structured by external deadlines like the bell schedule.
Right.
It involves planning lessons, teaching classes, teaching more classes after lunch. Sometimes having meetings with other teachers, sure, but the core flow is about direct engagement and preparation. And crucially, the source noted that this routine often finishes earlier, maybe around 4 p.m., because of school hours, even though administrative work might continue later, of course.
Right. So whether you're outlining a standard 9 to 5 corporate cycle or that structured, class-based flow of an educator, having that phrase, a typical day at work looks like, it allows the listener to immediately visualize your schedule, understand the tempo,
Yeah.
and feel like they have a complete picture of your working life. That makes the description far more impactful than just a simple time clock summary, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It brings it to life. Okay, so now that we know the what the tasks and the how often the routine,
Hmm.
the next essential layer of information is the context, the where and the how of your working environment and atmosphere.
Right. The where. That's perhaps the most dynamic part of the description right now, isn't it? Given how work has changed, we have to discuss the modern landscape. The environment isn't just a simple office or factory anymore.
Precisely. You really need to clarify your physical location these days. Are you working entirely remotely, which often means from home? Are you hybrid, working some days at home and some days in the office? Or are you strictly in an office downtown?
Yeah.
Each of those choices reflects a different set of company values, really, about trust, collaboration, overhead, all that stuff.
And of course, we have to account for those people outside the desk economy. Addressing non-office environments is crucial for a complete picture.
Definitely. Think of people who work outdoors, a construction worker, a park ranger, a field geologist maybe.
Right.
Their location is a defining characteristic of the job itself. It demands different skills, different gear, different daily routines, and someone tethered to a desk. You have to articulate that environment clearly.
Okay. So once location is defined, we move to the atmosphere, the how. This defines the internal culture of the workplace, and the source material divides this pretty clearly.
Yeah, it does. We basically have the formal workplace, often defined by wearing a suit, maybe having lots of rules.
Mm-hmm.
You often associate this with finance, law, or maybe traditional corporate settings.
Here?
The language is structured. Interactions can be hierarchical. Physical appearance matters significantly.
Conversely, the informal workplace, described as being more relaxed.
This is where you might wear comfortable clothes, maybe jeans. It implies often a flatter hierarchy, perhaps quicker decision-making,
Mm-hmm.
and usually a focus more purely on output than on presentation.
Right?
Understanding and articulating this difference tells the listener a lot about the psychological environment you operate in daily.
And this cultural atmosphere, it naturally leads into the dynamics of relationships with coworkers, doesn't
It
it?
really does. And this is highly important because team interaction often defines job longevity
Hmm.
and satisfaction.
So are your coworkers very friendly? Do you often help each other out with tasks?
Yeah, or maybe you work in a really small team that has built a bond that's like a family. These details about team dynamics, they're vital. They define job satisfaction almost as much as the tasks themselves, sometimes more. They humanize the work.
Absolutely. And to navigate this whole environment thoroughly, we need to make sure we're using the essential vocabulary of the workplace clearly, precisely.
Good point. There's some key terminology.
Let's start with the physical space that defines so many modern offices. The source defines an open space.
Ah, yes. As a big office room with many desks and no separate rooms, simple definition,
But the
are
implication.
vast. Exactly.
Yeah.
The description should probably quickly jump to the reality. Open spaces are designed to foster collaboration, sure, but they're also notorious for distraction.
Mm.
So when you mention open space, you're signaling a specific type of environment. Busy, high communication, maybe a bit noisy.
Okay. Next up is the concept that drives action and stress in most jobs. Deadline. The source simply defines this as the necessity to finish something by a specific time.
Right. But we need to elaborate a bit on the strategic communication around deadlines. When you talk about your work, you probably should acknowledge that deadlines can be stressful sometimes.
Okay.
A mature professional acknowledges the pressure, but emphasizes their ability to manage it. It shows reliability, not weakness.
That's a good distinction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Professionals don't just meet deadlines, they use language to manage expectations around them, often negotiating scope or resource allocation, that sort of thing.
Right. We also need to clearly define the key roles that structure the hierarchy.
The boss, the manager who assigns tasks, the coworker or colleague, the people you work side by side with,
Yeah.
and the client that's the customer or the external company one works for.
Got it.
And the unifying concept is the team, a group of people collaborating on a project. Describing your team structure small and agile or large and specialized adds tremendous context to how work actually gets done.
And finally, we have to discuss that modern perk that everyone seems to be seeking. Flexible hours.
Yes. The source noted this as a great perk, meaning you can choose when to start and finish, usually within limits.
But it's more than just a perk, isn't it?
I think so. The discussion here really needs to go beyond just defining it as a perk. Flexible hours often reflect a high-trust company culture. It implies the focus is on output and accountability rather than just seat time.
Right.
So when you mention flexible hours, you're communicating freedom, sure, but also the self-discipline required to manage that freedom effectively.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when you talk about your environment, remember to detail the location, the cultural atmosphere, the dynamics, and use that precise vocabulary that explains your daily reality.
Exactly. It builds a much richer picture.
Okay, so we've built a really complete picture now of the job's mechanics, the environment. Now we shift to the deeply personal relationship you have with your work and where this job fits into your broader professional story. We start with job satisfaction, the why.
This is the emotional core of the career conversation, really. You move past just the task list and explain the emotional payoff.
How do you do that effectively?
Well, you express enjoyment by explaining why you love the job. Maybe because it's creative, or because it's intellectually challenging, or perhaps simply because the people are nice. You connect it to a feeling or value.
But the critique noted that a purely positive description can sound, well, insincere sometimes.
Yeah, a bit Pollyanna-ish.
Right. So to be authentic and mature, we need to balance the positive with the negative. Acknowledge difficulties without dwelling on them.
That tension, that balance, is where the honesty resides. And the source material gave some excellent, relatable contrasts for this.
Like what?
Well, for a teacher, the most enjoyable part might be the teaching itself.
Yeah.
It's profoundly rewarding to see students learn. That's the passion, right?
Right.
But the part they enjoy least, often the necessary administrative load, like grading papers, because it can take a long time. It's essential, but maybe not enjoyable.
And the contrast applies to content creation too, I imagine.
Absolutely. The enjoyment comes from interacting with the audience, maybe seeing that direct engagement. That's the rewarding part. But the part they enjoy least might be the technical side of things, like editing videos, which can be isolating and tedious sometimes.
So you're separating the passion teaching, interacting from the necessary operational friction grading, editing.
Precisely. And if the role is inherently difficult or high pressure, you kind of need a prepackaged, balanced phrase, something that frames the difficulty positively. The source recommends. It can be stressful sometimes, but followed immediately by the positive aspect.
Can you give an example?
Sure, like it can be stressful sometimes, particularly during peak seasons, but I love the close-knit team I work with, which makes the pressure manageable.
Ah, okay. So you acknowledge reality, but you don't dwell on negativity or sound like you're complaining. You show you know how to cope.
Exactly. And this balance is crucial because it often leads into why people transition jobs. If the dissatisfaction starts to outweigh the rewards, the conversation naturally shifts to reasons for changing jobs.
And these transitions, they're usually driven by pretty clear motives, right? Seeking a new opportunity, maybe looking for better pay to meet financial goals.
Yeah, or perhaps seeking a job closer to home for better work-life balance. These are the common logical feelings people articulate when they're looking to transition.
Okay. Now let's look backward at the past jobs and experience the story so far. Your current job didn't just appear in a vacuum, did it?
Not at all. A great career conversation shows that evolution, shows the journey.
And one clear way to express this evolution is by contrasting scale and scope, using historical context.
Right, like I used to work in a small domestic company, but now I am a large international team.
Okay.
That immediately defines your growth trajectory, shows you've handled increased complexity, different responsibilities.
And it's important, isn't it, to acknowledge those early steps, often part-time or student work, even if it was just, working at a coffee shop or in retail.
Absolutely vital. Every job offers necessary lessons. Every experience counts.
Yeah, I think this is where we need to spend a bit more time. Because the critical component isn't just listing the history, is it? It's highlighting learned skills.
Yes,
You have to emphasize what specific transferable skills you acquired in previous, maybe less glamorous positions.
absolutely. Those skills are your professional currency. You have to frame your past as an asset.
So how do you do that?
You ask yourself, did you learn a lot about customer service while
Yeah.
working retail? Did you learn how to manage a small team during maybe a volunteer role? Did you learn how to talk to many different people while doing something like telemarketing?
Right.
You're consciously linking your past experiences to the present skills that make you successful now. You're defining your trajectory as intentional, not just accidental.
Okay. So with the past established, the present analyzed, what does this entire structure mean for the future? We move to future career goals, the aspiration. This is the exciting part, where you discuss planned growth.
Yeah, looking ahead. And here, we need to state dreams, sure, but also specific, measurable goals.
For example,
Well, it could be managing one's own YouTube channel full-time if they're in content creation. Or it could be the professional aim of wanting to become an expert in the field by achieving specific certifications or qualifications. Specificity makes the goal feel real, tangible.
and crucially, you have to focus on growth, right? By discussing skills you want to learn, showing you have that great mindset that you're actively investing in your future.
Exactly. This might be improving high-stakes communication skills or learning more about digital marketing and analytics or maybe leadership training, whatever it is.
Okay. And finally, defining the ultimate dream job. This is the big picture aspiration.
Yeah, the destination that kind of guides the current effort. It's the vision.
What might that sound like?
It could be something like traveling the world and teaching English in different countries, combining passions and skills, or maybe creating content that inspires millions of people. It's that ultimate goal.
Right. So when you discuss your future, you need to articulate where you want to be, the specific skills you want to learn to get there, and what that final guiding aspiration looks like. It connects everything.
Precisely. Past, present, and future all linked together.
Okay, we've spent the majority of our deep dive focusing on the architecture of how you talk about your job. But a professional conversation, it's always a two-way street, isn't it?
Always.
So we need to master the art of engaging others about their work using a structured approach that maximizes rapport and depth.
Yeah, it's not enough just to be prepared to respond. You need to know how to initiate and maintain a genuine flow.
So where do we start?
Well, the starting point, as we noted earlier, it's simple, common, and effective. What do you do?
Back to basics.
Back to basics.
Yeah.
Simple, direct, it breaks the ice immediately.
Okay. Once they've given their title, perhaps a brief functional description. You can't just move on, right? That would be abrupt.
Right, you need follow-up questions, questions that show genuine interest and push the dialogue past the superficial level.
What kind of follow-up questions work best?
Well, the first type is really about expressing care, gauging their emotional investment. Do you like your job?
Simple, human.
Very. It's a friendly human opener. It gives them permission to share enthusiasm or maybe even a controlled, balanced critique like we discussed earlier.
Okay. But asking, do you like it? It needs an immediate sort of structural counterpart, doesn't it, to gauge commitment?
Good point. A subsequent question should probably gauge their experience and commitment. How long have you worked there?
Why is that important?
Well, that duration gives you really important context about their tenure, their stability. If they say, oh, I've worked there for 5 years, it suggests deep commitment, probably institutional knowledge, a certain level of comfort maybe. If they say 6 months, it signals they're still learning, or perhaps that the role or company is more volatile. Both facts inform your perception of their career stability.
Okay, so here's where we apply the framework we just deconstructed for ourselves, but in reverse, right? We use detailed questions that we already know lead to depth and detail, keeping the conversation flowing beyond just the initial exchange.
And to seek engagement and motivation, the most powerful question, according to the source, is, what's the most interesting part of your job?
Okay, why is that specifically better than just asking, what do you do on a typical day?
Because asking what's the most interesting part, it sort of forces them into storytelling mode.
Ah,
Yeah. It compels them to identify the unique challenges, maybe the unexpected victories, or the core passion that really drives them. The source material pointed out that this question opens up for a more detailed answer. It forces them to explain the exciting core elements of their role,
Hmm.
which builds far better rapport than just a dry description of routine tasks.
Okay, that makes sense. Conversely, if you want to understand their commitment and routine better, you rely on those temporal questions we talked about earlier.
Right, you can ask, what is a typical day like for you? Or the slightly varied, what do you do on a typical day?
And these questions are good because,
They're excellent because they allow the person you're speaking to apply the exact framework we just learned for themselves.
right.
They can explain their start time, their core tasks, their team interactions, their environment. It's an easy, structured way for them to describe their life without struggling for words. It gives them a clear path.
Okay, so let's maybe consider a full flow then. I meet someone new, I ask, what do you do? They say, I work as a financial planner for a medium-sized firm downtown.
Okay? Your next move could be, oh, that sounds challenging. How long have you worked there?
Yeah.
Followed quickly by, and what would you say is the most interesting part of the planning process for you?
Ah, okay. So now you've gauged stability and invited enthusiasm. The conversation has depth, it has context, and it focuses on value rather than just staying stuck on the job title.
Exactly. That structure, starting simple, gauging tenure, and then prompting for depth or routine, ensures that you can genuinely understand their work environment, responsibilities, and motivations in pretty much any setting. And that strategic use of follow-up questions, it elevates you from just a casual acquaintance to a genuinely interested professional. It ensures your engagement is always meaningful and informative. Hashtag Outdrive Outro.
Wow. That was a truly comprehensive map, wasn't it, of how to navigate and really dominate the career conversation. We've covered everything from the immediate strategic choice between title and function
Mm-hmm.
to the details of daily life, the environment, the past, and the articulation of ambitious future goals.
Indeed. And the ultimate takeaway, I think, is not just the individual phrases, but the structure itself. This framework provides clarity. Clarity for describing your job title, your specific responsibilities, the environment, whether it's formal or informal,
Yeah.
the lessons learned from past experience, and the precise definitions of future goals. It's really a toolkit packed with useful information for anyone wanting to talk about their job with unparalleled depth and confidence.
And as we wrapped up section 4, we drew a deliberate line, didn't we, between what one enjoys most right now in the present
Yeah.
and their ultimate dream job aspiration in the future. We mapped the difference between present reality and future ambition.
We did.
This leaves us with one final provocative thought for you, the listener, to consider as you wrap up this deep dive. You've defined your history and your future, but what specific learned skill from your past job, maybe that small, overlooked detail from a previous role, is actually the biggest, most unexpected accelerator towards your ultimate dream job?
That's a great question.
Think about that essential, maybe non-obvious link between the history you established and the future you are building.
Yeah. Use this framework to dissect your own trajectory. Find those hidden connections. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We really hope this structure helps you master every professional conversation that comes your way.
We'll see you next time.